Hello again, wrestling fans, and welcome to another edition of the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast. This is episode number 141, and I'm Shawn from London, Ontario. Glad you are joining us today, whether you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, plus also catching us audio-wise on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or anywhere else you get your podcast from. Now, I'm recording this on a Saturday, just before the Impact Wrestling No Surrender pay-per-view. But normally we would be here on Thursday. Unfortunately, my dog was sick, and our co-host, Steven, who's been with us usually on Thursdays, has been sick for the last couple of days. So we wish him speedy recovery and hope he's able to join us for a Fantasy Warfare tournament on Wednesday. So, we're going to go solo this week and see how this goes, because I haven't pulled off a solo show in a long while. But it is what it is, and we're going to look at some of the goings on in the world of wrestling the last week. We're going to get you set up for tonight's pay-per-view, No Surrender from Impact Wrestling, and also look at tomorrow night's NXT Vengeance Day pay-per-view or special event on the network. So let's dive into it, see where we go, and how long this lasts us. But we got news, as I said, and can't, unfortunately, start the show without the acknowledgement of the natural Butch Reed, or Hacksaw Butch Reed, who passed away this past week. Just some details about Butch Reed. He was born Bruce Franklin Reed, July 11th, 1954, in Kansas City, Missouri. He died February 5th, 2021 at the age of 66, and he had experienced a couple of heart attacks, and his family is also saying that he had caught COVID last month, and so there could be some complications involving his catching COVID, which resulted in his untimely passing. Now, looking at Butch's career, he debuted in 1978 and retired in 2013. He attended the University of Central Missouri and played college football, and was signed by the Chiefs, but was cut before the season even started. So then he ended up going and training for wrestling, and was trained by Ronnie Atherton and wrestled around the NWA, Florida, and also Georgia. So then 1983 to 86, he was in Mid-South under Bill Watts. He teamed with JYD as a fan favorite, but eventually turned heel on JYD. And he also feuded with Jim Duggan over the nickname Hacksaw. When he turned heel, he was part of the Rat Pack with Ted DiBiase and Matt Bourne. People would remember Matt Bourne as the original Doink the Clown. And they were part of the Rat Pack, as I said. He had encounters with Jim the Anvil Neidhart, Magnum TA, Hercules, Steve Williams, Dusty Rhodes, Kamala, and Ric Flair. In NWA Central States, he teamed with Rufus R. Jones as Soul Patrol, but then eventually turned on Jones and teamed up with Slick, who was actually Jones's own son. And they ended up feuding. He even had a feud with Bruiser Brody in A Loser Leaves Town, and he lost that one, and that's how he ended up in WWE or WWF with Slick as his manager. They both all went together. So from 86 to 88, should I say, Reed and Slick were in the WWF, and he went by the Natural. He bleached his hair, somewhat like Sweet Daddy Siki. And he ended up feuding with Tito Santana, Coco Beware at the first WrestleMania. He ended up challenging Steamboat for the Intercontinental title, and that didn't work out for him. He apparently, if you believe lore, he ended up no-showing a couple times when he was supposed to end up winning the Intercontinental title from Steamboat, and that didn't set too well, and Steamboat was leaving, and that's how Honky Tonk Man ended up getting the title. So unfortunately, Butch Reed was never a champion in WWE. He competed against Randy Savage in the first round of the tournament at WrestleMania 4 and lost in that match. He had a feud with Billy Graham and Don Morocco and was part of Andre the Giant's team at the first ever Survivor Series in '87. But yeah, just after his match with Savage, he didn't stay around much longer in WWE and found himself working for Jim Crockett Promotions and the NWA. And after a few matches there, that's when he ended up forming Doom with Ron Simmons. They wore the masks, managed by a woman. A lot of people knew who they were because there wasn't many guys on the roster that were their sizes. And so they ended up feuding with the Steiners for a bit. They and didn't have much success, so Woman ended up leaving them, and they got Teddy Long. They lost their masks and eventually won the titles. But, of course, in regular fashion, Butch Reed turned on his partner, and Ron Simmons became face and eventually became world champion, but they feuded with each other then. So he ended up leaving WCW and worked a lot of the independents after that. He ended up leaving. He turned on Reed in '91, and he left WCW in '92 and worked the Indies from '92 to '02 and '05 to 2013, with one appearance, I believe, on WWE TV alongside Teddy Long in one of those reunion type episodes that they had. But he mainly worked for USWA and Global. And then February 5th, as I said, there was a posting on his Instagram that he passed away, and it was having complications with heart attacks and COVID, as his family is reporting. So unfortunately, we have lost another person into the wrestling world, and this time it was Hacksaw, the Natural, Butch Reed. So condolences out to his family and friends at this time. And in 2 weeks or in 2 episodes, we're going to actually probably talk a little bit more about Butch Reed, as we're going to do a celebration of Black History Month with Fantasy Warfare Tournament. And we're going to look at 16 of the greatest Black History athletes from all of wrestling, many generations. They're going to include people like Butch Reed, Ron Simmons, Rufus R. Jones, The Rock, Booker T, and many more. So definitely tune into that and find out where he ends up falling in the tournament brackets. That was what happened with him, unfortunately. Looking at some of the news and notes for this week, the other night in his tag team match, Cody Rhodes ended up getting a slight tear in his left rotator cuff. It could be good news for Cody, I guess, and maybe fans, depending on if he's able to do that match with Red Velvet as his tag team partner against Shaq and Jade Cargill. I don't know how many people really want to see it, so maybe this is a blessing in disguise. I hope Cody gets healed up soon. Arn Anderson's son was also at ringside during that match and was greeted by Cody. His name is Brock, and he looks a lot like his dad, just a lot taller, and also looks like he's older than what he is, but probably going to stay at that age in appearance, because I never knew Arn Anderson was as young as he was at certain times. I always thought he was in his 40s when he was probably a lot younger in WCW and even his run in WWE with the Brainbusters. But so Brock Anderson, or Lundy is his real name, is training right now, and obviously will be probably joining the Nightmare family and being a part of AEW when he finally does make his way to the wrestling ring. AEW broke the fourth wall with their camera works, and I feel it kind of needs a little bit of work, because they spend too much emphasis on the fact, oh, there's a camera here, and instead of things being secretive, even trying to do that recording, looking like of MJF with his phone to try and trick Sammy Guevara into saying something against Chris Jericho. Meanwhile, there's a camera there, so people are already seeing it anyways. So they got to work on that whole thing. It's kind of dumb in the long run. But I get it. They don't want to totally suspend make-believe, and people wonder why is there a camera here when they're not, or however their rationale for it is. Also, this past week on MLW, Leo Rush won the Triple A World Cruiserweight Championship from Laredo Kid. Rush also holds the MLW middleweight title that he won from Myron Reed on January 7th. So Lee Johnson has officially signed with AEW as well, and he was the tag team partner of Cody in their match against Peter Avalon and Cesar Bonani. He began working in AEW in April last year. So almost a year later, he's finally signed. Carlito is on this week's edition of After the Bell with Corey Graves, so you might want to check out what his future lies with the WWE. There's a lot of thought that he wants to actually stay there a lot longer. He wanted to leave originally to spread his wings and get more experience, so he's gotten to do that, and now he's back. Hopefully he's in a better headspace, because a lot of times he had a reputation for being kind of lazy and complacent in a way, that he didn't really do anything unless it was absolutely necessary, or he was just laying back and waiting for his time to do stuff. Christian was on the bump this week as well on Wednesday and talked about his return to WWE. He mentioned that he felt that his return meant more to Edge than it did even to him. He only found out at Friday at 7:30 p.m., 2 days before the Royal Rumble, that he was cleared to enter. So he didn't have a lot of time to prepare and different gear or anything like that. He just was quickly having to get ready for it. But it was a huge and pleasant surprise that he did that. He has stated he's basically going to be part-time, unlike how Edge has said that he's going to be doing his return full-time. But it's understandable. They have two different injuries. I'm not sure where they're going to end up placing him. We haven't seen him since his return at the Royal Rumble. But on the last time that he was active, he was actually becoming the number one contender for the Intercontinental Championship. And oddly enough, at that time, the champion was Big E. And right now, the Intercontinental Champion is Big E. So there's a little bit of parallel. He could end up coming back and saying that he wants the title that he was rightfully in line for, almost like Edge is saying he wants the title that he never lost. And that's where he's looking forward to winning the World Championship at WrestleMania. So Tori Wilson was also on a virtual meet and greet with Asylum Wrestling store and signing autographs and memorabilia and stuff like that. And during the session, she had a few questions asked her, and she said one of her favorite storylines was actually working with her dad. A lot of people didn't like that, because especially Al Wilson was very green, even greener than Tori Wilson, obviously. And the embarrassment with the him in his underwear for the wedding with Dawn Marie and stuff like that. But she definitely enjoyed having her dad part of her world in wrestling. Her one regret would have been to not be rushed onto TV and actually learn how to wrestle. And her least favorite storyline, she said, was somewhat with Sable, because Sable coming across as a naturally sexual, sexy presentation. And that kind of was the total opposite of what Tori Wilson felt she was, even though a lot of guys would probably say totally different in their view of Tori Wilson. But she didn't feel the same way. She just felt, oh my God, and really closed in and kind of awkward about the whole thing. So you can check out Asylum Wrestling Store, and they could have their video still available. Devon Dudley said on his Table Talk podcast that he's wants to enter the Royal Rumble next year. He's kind of had a little bit of health issues, but he probably feels that he'll be good to go still a year away, so why not? And it's probably the earliest anybody has thrown their hat into the pool for being part of the Royal Rumble, especially this far away from the next event. Matt Hardy also was recently on Devon's podcast, and he pitched an idea that he'd love to see, especially with this whole cinematic world that we live in right now. Imagine a rematch all these years later of TLC 2 and having the Dudleys against the Hardys and Edge and Christian, and what they could do with cinematic format and still not get hurt. So I don't see it ever happening because they're all in different organizations and different places in their careers. But yeah, I guess he kind of has a point. It would be something to look back and see. Alexa Bliss has been dealing with a stranger online. I'm not going to give his name or any credence to him because, it's just ridiculous. All these guys who are stalking people. There's this guy that's doing Alexa Bliss. There's the one who went after Sonya Deville. There's another one sending gifts to Caleb Braxton, Peyton Royce. Like, guys, seriously, be respectful. And you can be a fan, but you're going overboard when you're getting to the point where you're being labeled a stalker and also finding them at their homes and stuff like that. Apparently, this guy has claimed that he is Alexa Bliss's real husband, is making threats towards Alexa Bliss's fiance, and even claiming that he was at Alexa's house. So he's been suspended a few times from Twitter, because that seems to be his major outlet for communication. And then he even brought in Sonya Deville, saying about the guy who went after her was nothing compared to what he could do, and he's willing to even try and convert her back to liking men instead of being a lesbian. Just the language that he was using, that's what ended up causing his 12-hour banning from Twitter. But I guess it doesn't really matter how long he gets banned from Twitter, because he can just make up another profile and continue what he's doing, because I guess he's already done it a few times with Alexa Bliss and been about 6 different profiles. So hopefully this guy gets caught. Hopefully they get help. Hopefully it doesn't go to the extent of what happened with Sonya Deville, where the guy actually did get into her house and almost attack her and Mandy Rose. But yeah, guys, this is just ridiculous. Hopefully that gets looked into and figured out. Nia Jax has been offered an ambassador role after her outburst, shall we say, on Monday Night Raw in her tables match with Lana, unannounced match at that, which is kind of crazy. But a lot of people saw that she went for a leg drop, hit the hardest part of the ring. She started screaming, "Ow, my butt," and then "Ow, my hole," before being put through the table and losing the match. But of course, you can find those memes everywhere, along with videos of her doing it. But because of that, she's been offered a product and ambassadorship for a product called Tushy, and they sell bidets. So I don't know if that's going to happen or all, but it's definitely a way of capitalizing on this blunder that she made. Can only imagine what her cousin The Rock thinks about that one. But yeah, interesting times for coming up with those blunders. So I don't know where you'd end up saying that. Even spontaneous, I guess. Want to send congratulations out to Sarah Logan and Eric Rowe for the birth of their son. That happened this past week. Congratulations also to Mia Yim and Keith Lee, who posted about their engagement this week on Thursday. She posted, Mia Yim that is, posted that she said yes, and it's going to be Mr. and Mrs. Lee going forward. WD has also signed the next Brock Lesnar, Parker Bordeaux. He is basically a very young, tattooed clone of Brock Lesnar. Super pumped. You'll have to take a look at him online. I'm not sure if he's even hit 20 yet, but yeah, he's Brock Lesnar 20 years ago for sure. And Paul Heyman's even boasted about him. I think he did a Royal Rumble watch-along party with, I'm trying to remember who, Eva Marie. There was pictures of him doing that. So future is bright for him if he has the same ability as Brock Lesnar. Expect another few matches to be announced for Elimination Chamber. They're still building up, and they only have a week left to go before that happens. Only one more match got added last night on SmackDown. WWE is... reading my writing here. My apologies. WWE, like the way that things were set up at the Super Bowl this past weekend at Raymond James Stadium in Tampa. That's where WrestleMania is going to be. And so they got a feel of how to properly allow people to get into the stadium, security that's going to be needed, all the protocols for COVID that the Super Bowl used and the NFL. They're probably going to end up using themselves. There was a lot of cardboard cutouts in the stands to help make the field look bigger, and instead of a lot of empty seats. And it's expected probably by the end of this month that they will have all that figured out and start putting tickets on sale. Not that tickets are going to last long anyways, but they're going to go quickly. I think the Super Bowl had about 25,000 in attendance, 22 to 25,000. So with being able to use the field as well, unlike how the NFL cannot use the field, there could probably get up to about the 25,000 people paid attendance for 2 nights each of WrestleMania on April 10th and 11th. Cameron Grimes showed up on NXT this past week, flashing cash, and he even did a snow angel in it and showed up in an expensive car. Where that's going as far as his character goes, we'll have to wait and see. But apparently he was one of those guys who ended up buying stock and cashing out, buying low and cashing out early in GameStop, and did make a lot of money off of that whole investment. So this could be a Ted DiBiase thing. It could be even back to DDP winning the lottery, like he did in WCW, and starting wearing fur coats and stuff like that after being down and out. So we'll see where that goes from here. Kiera Hogan, yes, you're probably wondering who. Yes, Impact Wrestling is starting an online feud with Sasha Banks, calling her imitation and all this other stuff, more than just the blue hair. But Sasha has yet to respond to Kiera's claims. And Booker T wants one more big match. He wants it to be a rematch from WrestleMania 19 against Triple H and have it in Saudi Arabia. So that's a lot of the news and notes that are going around this past week. I just want to look at some of the results from the TV shows. Wednesday night, TNT had AEW Dynamite. The TNT Championship was on the line at the start, and Darby Allin defeated Joey Janela. Later on, we'd see Team Taz end up dragging Darby Allin in a body bag behind a car in the parking lot as Sting was watching on. So they're still setting up that for their next pay-per-view. There's highlights of Kenta coming through the forbidden door, as Excalibur said it was. Outside the arena, Jon Moxley had words for Kenta. MJF was talking to the inner circle behind closed doors when Sammy Guevara busted in to the door, and he tried to confront everybody and talk to Chris Jericho and say that basically MJF is trying to take over the inner circle from Chris. The American Nightmare Cody Rhodes, who unfortunately got injured, as I said, teamed with Lee Johnson, and they defeated Pretty Peter Avalon and Cesar Bononi. Pretty short match. Lee picked up the victory in that one. An interview happened with the Young Bucks, and they were asked about being eliminated by guys from Battle Royal last week. And yeah, they were looking towards picking the Good Brothers and stuff like that. So just more tension between them, and they're still trying to be friends with Kenny Omega, and that's kind of crazy. Hangman Page got interviewed next. He was with Matt Hardy. They went drinking. Later on, there was a scene where they were at a bar, and as Matt was talking to the camera, trying to get Page to sign a contract, Page ended up switching out the contracts and signed something and gave it to Matt Hardy. So what that is going to entail, who knows? But Matt's thinking that he's going to get all this money from a drunken Adam Page, and Page is going to be part of his group. So it seems to be a long-running storyline of getting who's going to land Page as their partner along the way. Pac took on the Hollywood hunk Ryan Nemeth, which is Dolph Ziggler's brother, and Pac ended up picking up the victory in that. There was a recap of the wedding from the week before. Not anything you really missed on that one. Dasha interviewed Chris Jericho, and MJF was there with his ribs taped and everything, and they wondered where Sammy was, and they were going to end up looking for him and deal with him later on. Chris Jericho and MJF took on the Acclaimed and picked up victory on that one. Alex Marvez caught up with Guevara and wondered why he left the inner circle. Sammy said it didn't matter. He's over it, and he needs to refocus on his career and get time away from the inner circle and Chris Jericho and everybody like that. So then Tony Schiavone also interviewed Sting, and that's when Taz showed up and on the screen, and they were dragging Darby Allin around. And there was the AEW Women's World Championship Eliminator Tournament starting off with Layla Hirsch taking on Thunder Rosa. And Thunder Rosa ended up beating Layla Hirsch. A lot of the rest of the tournament is going to take place on YouTube, and because half of it is happening in Japan and being recorded there and being broadcast, as I said, on YouTube. So expect a lot of that to happen that way. Jungle Boy was interviewed by Tony Schiavone. He still wants to go after FTR, along with Luchasaurus. They wanted to find out how Marco Stunt was after being kidnapped last week. And the main event was a Falls Count Anywhere. It didn't turn out to be a lights out match, with Kenny Omega teaming with Kenta, taking on Jon Moxley and Lance Archer. And so that was actually a really good match. I can't give it justice by trying to describe it here. I would go back and watch that match, if at all, for anything. Yeah. The Good Brothers got involved as well, and how it ended was with the Archer. Good Brothers silenced Archer with the Magic Killer, and Omega followed up by cracking Archer with the V-trigger. So they got the victory that way. With the assistance of the Good Brothers, Omega lifted Archer up and planted him with the one-wing angel. Omega then pinned Archer for the victory. So that was AEW's Dynamite for this week. They're gearing towards, as I said, their pay-per-view coming up. And just a quick look at the women's eliminator tournament as I bring that up here. Super 16, you have Yuka Sakazaki, Mai Segura, Benny, Emma Sakura, Mikey, I'm going to butcher these names, I apologize, Mizunami, Aja Kong, and Kato Kura, all on the Japanese side. Like I said, I apologize for butchering those names. On the other side, we saw Layla Hirsch lose to Thunder Rosa. Serena Deeb is going to take on Rio next week. Then there's Tay Conti against Nyla Rose, Dr. Britt Baker against Anna Jay. Depending on how that goes, we could end up seeing best friends Tay Conti and Anna Jay against each other. But I also think that's a little highly unlikely at the same time. But yeah, that's going to play out a lot on YouTube. Then looking at the results for this past Monday quickly on Raw, Shane McMahon came back to Raw and was with Adam Pearce, and they announced the men's elimination chamber, at least from Raw, and that's going to have Drew McIntyre actually defending the title against former champions Randy Orton, Jeff Hardy, AJ Styles, Miz, and Sheamus, which is kind of surprising after Sheamus turned on Drew this past week before that. You would have thought they're setting up for a one-on-one that way, or they could have at least waited till this match to have Sheamus turn on Drew, but they didn't. The Miz is getting a title shot, even though he also has the Money in the Bank, so I guess he gets to try, and then if he fails, he could always cash it in. AJ Styles defeated Jeff Hardy. Jeff Hardy constantly losing is boggling, yet he's in this elimination match. The New Day defeated Retribution's T-Bar and Slapjack. This was Kofi's first match back. Lacey Evans defeated Charlotte Flair by disqualification. Rick was out there. They're playing off that she's just learning from him. There's nothing else going on. Charlotte is just embarrassed by her dad, and they basically said if Lacey could beat Charlotte, she'd end up becoming number one contender to Asuka, and because of the disqualification, Asuka is going to be going against Lacey Evans at the pay-per-view. Edge was confronted by Miz and Morrison. Edge basically also said that he was going to wait to announce who he's picking for WrestleMania until after the Chamber, because he doesn't know if Drew's even going to survive, so he doesn't want to make his pick on the Raw title, not knowing who he's going to go against. Then Angel Garza ended up losing to Damian Priest. Bad Bunny was there. Angel Garza was also with Miz Morrison. Bad Bunny got them distracted and kicked out of the Thunderdome, and had Damian Priest gain the victory. Keith Lee returned to action, and he beat Matt Riddle. We also had Lana defeating Nia Jax in a tables match, and that's where the "oh my butt, oh my hole" incident happened. And also Naomi defeated Shayna Baszler. So the number one contenders have some momentum going against the tag team champions eventually, when that match happens. And Drew McIntyre defeated Randy Orton. Well, actually, sorry, it went to a no contest after Sheamus ended up interfering and brogue kicking McIntyre second week in a row, and then that's how things ended. But Sheamus did get kicked with a Claymore by Drew McIntyre as the show went off the air. So that was Raw for this past week. Over on NXT on Wednesday, which was opposite Dynamite on TNT, There's the semifinals to the Dusty Rhodes Classic, which is setting up for tomorrow night's pay-per-view. I'll go through that in just a little bit. But MSK defeated Legado del Fantasma in the Dusty Classic semifinals. Xia Li defeated Cora Jade. Xia Li's brought a really aggressive style back with her, with everything that's going on in that situation. Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon defeated Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell to stamp their ticket to go into the Women's Dusty Cup Finals, and that'll happen on Sunday. Johnny Gargano tried to pretend to be injured and get out of his North American title match happening tomorrow night. Kushida ended up defeating Austin Theory by disqualification, and there was a big tug of war over the title that proved that Gargano was still healthy and could take part in the matchup tomorrow. I mentioned Cameron Grimes showing up and flashing cash. So we got a rich version of Cameron Grimes coming. And then, of course, we had the Grizzled Young Veterans defeat Tommaso Ciampa and Timothy Thatcher in their semifinal match. And so they will meet up with MSK tomorrow night. And, of course, there was a confrontation between Finn Balor and Pete Dunne going into the pay-per-view as well, because Pete Dunne is going to be challenging Finn Balor. And then last night on SmackDown, Adam Pearce was in the ring about to announce the Elimination Chamber match for the SmackDown side of things and was going to put Roman Reigns in it, but they're playing the sort of, you can't force the head of the table to do this, but he will still defend the title. But they wanted to have an Elimination Chamber with the winner immediately getting a title shot. So Adam Pearce finally agreed to that, said that Jey Uso and Kevin Owens instantly qualified for the match. They did a tag team match with Rey Mysterio and Dominic Mysterio taking on Corbin and Sami Zayn. The winner of that match earned their spots into the Elimination Chamber. And later on, there was also Daniel Bryan and Cesaro going against Rude and Dolph for their spots. So that's how things ended up going that way. Sami Zayn and King Corbin ended up defeating the Mysterios to earn their opportunities in. Then Big E defeated Nakamura, and in a open challenge for the Intercontinental title after Apollo Crews ended up drop kicking Big E. So that was basically by disqualification. Shinsuke got screwed over, and Apollo still wants the Intercontinental title from Big E. I expect that to be added to the Elimination Chamber event happening next week. Seth Rollins came back, and they brought out all the talent to surround the ring, and then they brought him down, and he talked about the fact that he's now a new father, and it almost like he turned face, but then his words changed back to the sort of Messiah, the savior, brainwasher type deal that he was doing beforehand, and they just kept a tight view on him. And by the time they pulled out and he was done, everybody had left the ringside area except for Cesaro, who was still kind of questioning what was going on. And then he decided, no, I'm out of here. And he started leaving. And he then got attacked by Seth Rollins. So he had a little bit of a handicap going into the match at the end of the night with Daniel Bryan to go against the tag team champions, Bobby Roode and Dolph Ziggler. Thankfully, that didn't last too long, and they ended up picking up victory at the end. I'll talk about that in a moment. Bayley ended up defeating Liv Morgan. Once again, you had Ruby Riott down ringside, but then Billie Kay tried to apologize, and distraction from the ref because of the stuff going on. and Bailey picked up the victory. The Street Profits defeated Otis and Chad Gable. They're hoping to get back into contendership for their tag team titles. There was a in-ring segment with Sasha Banks talking about Bianca Belair. Bianca came down, and before they could really get into anything and decide where Bianca was going to decide for her Royal Rumble win, they were interrupted by Nia Jax and Shayna Baszler, and that ended up into a little bit of a brawl with both Sasha and Bianca standing tall at the end, and the heels retreating. As I said, the main event was Daniel Bryan and Cesaro. They ended up beating the tag team champions to qualify for the Elimination Chamber. After that, all hell broke loose, and all 6 men who were involved with the chamber basically brawled with Kevin Owens taking out a lot of them with a stunner. And so that was what happened last night on SmackDown. Now, to just look at one more thing before we go to the TLC, or not TLC, my apologies, to NXT Vengeance card, which I'll give my picks for. Tonight on the Impact app is No Surrender. So that's happening on Impact Plus. It's tonight at 8 p.m. And here are the matches that are happening with that. There is Hernandez and Brian Myers taking on Eddie Edwards and Matt Cardona. So friends are going to be on opposite sides of the ring with each other. I'm picking Edwards and Cardona to pick up the victory in here, unless Cardona and Brian end up reteaming and screw Eddie Edwards over. Diener, along with Violence... I forget their Violence by Design. Sorry, I just saw the initials VBD. Violence by Design. So you got them taking on Jake something, which was cousin Jake of the Dieners. So if they're still claiming him to be family, cousin Jake looks like he's going to be a little bit outnumbered by Diener and company. So I'm picking Diener to win this one. Fire and Flava taking on Havoc and Nevaeh in a rematch for the women's tag team titles. And it's a Texas Tornado no DQ match. I still think the champions are going to be on top with Fire and Flava picking up the victory. Then Deonna Purrazzo, Kimberly, and Susan are going to take on Jordynne Grace, Jazz, and ODB. Looks like another incarnation Susan is of Susie and Sue Young. And it looks more business type, almost like Alexander York-ish in that way. But I'm going to go with the faces on here with Jordynne Grace, Jazz, and ODB. Jazz is having a nice Renaissance run, even after retirement and coming back. So I'm going with them. Then TJP is going to defend the X Division title against Rohit Raju. I still think TJP is going to be on top on this one. So he's going to be outsmarting Raju and Shera in that. Now, this is an interesting one here. There's a triple threat revolver match. It's a first of its kind. It's a triple threat match, but gauntlet style as well. So, as you see, Daivari, Suicide, Willie Mack, Ace Austin, Trey Miguel, Chris Bay, Josh Alexander, and Blake Christian are all going to be in this match. 3 will start, and after each person is eliminated, another person will come in until there's a final 3. And that triple threat match will be the last 3 to compete, and the people eligible for the actual win, and they're going to get a number 1 contenders designation for the X Division Championship. So, interesting situation there. I almost see somebody like Trey Miguel coming out on top of this one. There's they're going to be pushing him since he ended up staying compared to the rest of his Rascals teammates. 3 more matches. We got Triple XL and Tennille Dashwood taking on Decay. I'm going to go with Decay on this one, even though Triple XL definitely outweigh the other members of Decay. But yeah, I think Decay is going to pick up this one. Then the tag team titles are in line, and it was supposed to be just the Good Brothers against Private Party with Matt Hardy in the Impact versus AEW sort of storyline feud. But somehow Chris Sabin and Storm got back into it, even though Private Party beat them to get number 1 contendership. But I still see the Good Brothers coming out on top with the tag team titles secure. And happy birthday to Tommy Dreamer. Today's his 50th birthday. He's challenging for the Impact World Championship over Rich Swann. But sadly, I do not see Tommy picking up the victory in this one and becoming the new champion. So Rich Swann will be still champion. Won't surprise me if Kenny Omega is somehow involved as well, because they want to continue that whole thing with Kenny Omega and Don Callis and the AEW invasion that's going on. So that's No Surrender tonight. It's on the Impact Plus app at 8 p.m. So if you have Impact Plus, you're great. It might be also on Fight, but definitely check out Impact Plus. And then tomorrow night on WWE Network is NXT Takeover Vengeance Day. So if you're not doing anything for Valentine's Day or have it already done, and you and your love of your life love wrestling and can snuggle up on the couch and watch Vengeance Day, then go for it. 5 matches have been announced. First one is going to be Kushida challenging Johnny Gargano for the North American Championship. I see Kushida finally getting a title in NXT. Gargano is somebody who looks good with the title but doesn't need a title, regardless of him staying in NXT and not going up. There's the Dusty Rhodes finals, and that has the first match being Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon, who won their matchup, going against Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. They had already gotten into their position. I'm going to go with probably the underdogs in this one, Ember Moon and Shotzi Blackheart. And then there's the other side with the men and MSK taking on Grizzled Young Veterans. I think it's too soon for MSK to get things. They are new on the scene. It's the Rascals, but I don't see them coming in and getting the Dusty Cup immediately. I see Grizzled Young Veterans getting it and being the victors. The women's title is on the line as Io Shirai is going to defend her championship in a triple threat match against Mercedes Martinez and Toni Storm. I thought for a while that Martinez is going to pick up the victory, but I'm going to lean towards Toni Storm. It's about time Io drops the title and goes up to the main roster. I'd love to see her do something with Asuka, and whether it's a new version of the Kabuki Warriors or even facing off against each other at WrestleMania for the title. And the main event is going to have Finn Balor against Pete Dunne. Now, on a pool that I am part of, I did pick Finn Balor to retain. I'm kind of questioning that right now and thinking maybe Pete Dunne is going to be the new NXT champion. That'll allow Balor to rest his injuries a bit more, because he kind of keeps on getting broken down more and more each time, especially after his battles with O'Reilly. So that, as I said, is happening tomorrow night on the WWE Network, 7 p.m., NXT Vengeance Day. So you don't want to miss any of those. shows coming up, and that wraps up everything that I had for this week. Be sure to check out our Fantasy Warfare tournament. This week is going to be the greatest TNA Impact champion. We're going from the time when the NWA left TNA all the way to today. So that's still 5 years after they started until today. Good arraignment of contenders there. That's Wednesday night at 6 p.m. And that's with Jonesy, Steven, and myself. And also Thursday afternoon at noon, you can join Jonesy and I for This Week in History as we look back at the week of February 12th to the 18th, I believe it is. And that'll happen, as I said, Thursday. And Thursday night, we'll be back with a regular edition of the Scumbags Wrestling Podcast. More news, more notes from the events that I just ran down, along with looking at the Elimination Chamber match that's going to happen on Sunday. There's definitely going to be 2 Elimination Chambers. It's going to be odd that the first time in 4 years that the women have not had an Elimination Chamber match unless they come up with one on Monday. But yeah, that's all happening on next week's episode at 8 p.m. on Thursday. Tune in to us on Facebook. Email us scumbagsatwrestling@gmail.com. But also on our Facebook page, you'll find all the different podcasts that we support as being part of the Ontario Indie Wrestling Podcast Network. I'm just going to bring up a photo of all the shows that are part of that. But, you have Straight Talk with George Mackay, Knights of the Round Circle, or Knights of the Squared Circle, should I say, with Ryan Knight. You have Gilmy Talks and a whole bunch of other ones. Oh, there we are. Shaw Wars. There's also a podcast with Brian Myers. Coming up next month, Carter Mason is bringing in his own podcast as well. So there's a ton of podcasts that you can check out. The Good Brothers Morning is around. MLW Rewind with George Mackay and Lewis. It's Time for a Fight podcast. Shaw Wars. What You Talking to Boot. Alliance Pro Wrestling Network. Just check it out. Ontario Indie Wrestling Podcast Network. We have our own page, and you can get all the links to that. So be a part of that. And yeah, we'll see what happens next week. Enjoy wrestling for this weekend, whether you're watching No Surrender or Vengeance Day. And wishing Steven a healthy recovery so that we can talk more wrestling and be a little more entertaining than this episode. So, till next time, catch you later.